Okay, when I'm doing my cake matrix, I usually will start by making sure that my base price is the amount that I want it. I usually set it at 0.8. That's for you to decide. You also want to make sure that you have on the base price tab set all of your prices that you know how much it cost you. So when I went down to the craft store, I found that 6 16-inch cake circles were $6.29, and anything in this list right here is charged tax, since my local cake supply place does charge me tax, so I have tax listed up here at the top. I also have links to which recipes that I'm using, which are on different tabs. So I want to make sure that I choose which recipe that I'm using, as well as I just have everything listed that I might be using. So I can put in here that I'm going to be using 2 16-inch cake circles and 2 14-inch cake circles if I need to. And it automatically will figure out the unit price as well as the price with tax. If I come up here, I can say, well, I'm actually going to be using, instead of, I'm going to use strawberry filling, and it'll give me the price on that. Going back to my pricing tab, the first tab, I can see here that I have different choices for how long it's going to take me, and I have this where it automatically calculates the decorating hours. However, you should definitely look at that and from your own experience decide how much time it actually takes you to override that price, and then how much you think you should get paid per hour. In addition, you want to put in here how much extra would you charge for fondant. I like doing fondant, so I actually don't have an extra charge. I put in 0. And I use marshmallow fondant, so I put yes for marshmallow fondant. If I'm going to do square cakes, I'll put in 3 for the type of cake pan. And so you want to just make sure that you just look through all the different colored squares to fill any information that is applicable to you. You'll notice at the bottom there are a lot of different tabs. So you'll want to click on each of those the first time you look at the matrix to make sure that everything is set the way that you want it. So once you come down here ready to insert your prices. Oh, by the way, anything that has a red triangle, if you hover over it, it will give you a little information about how to use that space. For example, I think square cakes are a little bit harder and they are a little bit more time consuming, so I charge an extra 10%. In addition, whenever I try and stick a 14-inch cake or a 16-inch cake together, it seems to me that it always wants to fall apart, so it's more stress and more work for me to do a 14 and 16-inch cake. So I've added an extra 10 and 30% to my base price for those cakes. You can, of course, just click here and delete and not charge that. So if I am doing an 8-inch cake in fondant, I usually would bake 2 cakes, so I will type 2. And maybe if I were to stack that on top of a 10-inch cake, I would also put 2. But maybe I might have a 10-inch satellite cake, so I put 4 layers. So down here what I would notice is that only 2 of those 10-inch cakes are tiered, where 2 of the 8-inch cakes will be tiered. So if I put the 10 and the 8 on top of it, 2 layers will be stacked up on top of the 2 layers of 10-inch, so I have a total of 4 layers stacked. But I have 2 layers that are just off to the side. So this adds up to 6, but this only adds up to 4. You'll notice here when I put in square cakes, it automatically gave a Y for yes, they're square. So you just go to look for square cake charges, and I'm charging an extra 10%. If you change that to 0, or you can just delete and say, well, I don't really want to charge them extra for this. You'll also notice when I change it to square cake pans that the number of servings at the top is different than if it was round cake pan. So if I change this from a 2 to a 1, you notice I go from 132 to 103 servings. I'm going to go ahead and switch that back. So I have 132 servings. This is the top layer, and you can see how you want to charge for that. I also like to triple tort my cake fillings. So I'm going to put 3 layers of filling per cake. 3 layers of filling per cake. You'll notice that I have up here preset that there are 2 cake layers that I'm putting together. If you're just doing 1 cake and torting it, you'll put 1 so that when it's coming over here and I'm saying that I have 3 per cake, right here if it says 4, it assumes that that's 2 cakes because I have 2 layers per cake. If I put 1 layer per cake, that would assume it was 4 cakes, and this would say 4 times 3 is 12 as opposed to 6. So that is where those are. So if I come up, I can see here it's going to give me my overall price that I should charge. This is the price per serving with and without the top layer. If you are charging tax, then the price per serving will be included with tax. There's also places for rental and delivery charges, which if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll notice here if you might want to charge per mile and the number of miles. Obviously, a lot of these things are optional. You just want to look over all of the different cells and see what it is that you want to include in your pricing. So if I go to the Info to Know tab, that's the second one, it just gives me some general things to summarize information I might want to tell my client, or family member with what type of filling I'm using, how many cakes I'm making in total. So I notice here that if I'm using cake mix, I'm making, or maybe I'm not even using cake mix, maybe it's just scratch cake. It still has a recipe for a single unit. So I need to make 8 units of cake, as well as 5 batches of frosting. I have 132 servings, and of course all of this is really theoretical, and it's telling me how much my actual costs are, the actual cost of all the ingredients, and what my profit is.